Centre of London market comprises 66 million square feet. We are now at cycle low vacancy. We are, as we close 2018, we are at 3.1% vacancy. Tracking forward next year, we'll be down towards 2.5% vacancy. Not uncharted territory, but we are at a crucial point in the market. We're at a point where refurbished stock can fill the gap. Frustratingly, real estate can't turn on and off quickly, but refurbished opportunities, we think in 2019, 2020, can come in and fill the pipeline. Occupiers want to be in the centre of London, stock has to be delivered for them.
Just building on the centre of London theme that kind of runs through the presentation we just had, demand for space within that area actually comes from nearly all genres or all sub-markets. The blistering pace of the tech industry and the damn it sector and almost a stubborn determination that they will keep improving has led them to commit to new offices and new take-up across all of central London. And I think one can see now, taking WeWork as an example, because they're an easy one just to look at externally, they're moving more to corporate services solutions. So it's not just the nature of these start-up companies taking pods within floors of spaces, it's whole businesses looking at whole floors on a flexible basis. Is that something that is due to the uncertainty, or is it due to their actual business growth and needing to have that flexibility? I like to think it's more the latter.
2018 was obviously quite a challenging year for the retail market. Things are changing quite significantly, and the role of the physical store is changing quite a lot as well. Retail sales as a whole in the UK continue to grow, but in-store sales are decreasing while online sales are increasing. So people are very conscious that their physical stores have a new role to play. In terms of South Bank, it's quite a niche market, so we're not particularly exposed to the mass market operators that are failing at the moment. And it's still very much the case that if you deliver the right quantum and format of space in the right location, you haven't got a problem with it. Covent Garden is quite a good case study for how the role of the physical store is changing actually, because over the last 12-18 months, a lot of large units on Long Acre have become vacant or people are trying to offload their leases, whereas Covent Garden as a market generally for retail is performing very, very well, but it seems to be that the smaller stores, for example what Capco have achieved on Floral Street, smaller stores on James Street and around the Piazza itself, are exactly what operators want, because they're an economical size for what they need to sell and what they need to showcase in Covent Garden. We're about to formally launch the marketing of Waterloo, London. We've got 100,000 square feet of space on top of the 35,000 square feet which we're letting to Time Out Market. Are we worried about getting a great result for that space? Absolutely not, because we've delivered the right format space at Waterloo Station, and therefore people are always going to want that sort of thing. It's very much the case now that the consumer cares more about the independence and the coolness, if you like, of operators. They care about where things are coming from. So traditionally where we've had big chains taking space, and that's always been the key thing for a landlord to achieve in a scheme, is getting all of the mass market guys in. The interesting thing is that in the property world, covenant is king, but in what consumers want, covenant isn't really king. They want the independence, so it's a bit of an interesting trade-off at the moment. And it's really important to try and get the right balance between the mass market operators, who tend to be able to pay more, and the more independent, cooler people, which is what the consumer wants.
So I think there's a lot of speculation, you know, the name WeWork's always banded around. People forget there's, about 60 live operators at the minute in the market. WeWork always dominate the news. They've had massive investments last year. They had 10 billion invested from SoftBank. I think the largest investment into any company in the world. So they're always going to make the news. I think the message from them, having spoken to them very recently, they're still looking to expand. They're looking to double and get another 6 million square feet in London in the next 2 years, where they can find the space, with landlords doing their own with British Land and Story, also with the further operators. So there's increased competition. Some landlords are doing it in-house, some are having people white label things for them, you know, so it's all that competition, and I think the speculation is massive. It's who's going to be the one to fail, one's going to fail, and I think if any do fail, it's not because of the concept of co-working, it's because probably the way the business has been run, because I think the concept of co-working and flexible working is massive at the minute, and it's going to stay for sure. People need that flexibility.
The universal opinion out there is that London as a market has outperformed expectation. So if we go back 12 months, obviously with the macro political scene, certainly projections were for turnover to come off. In spite of this, London delivered 20 billion, okay, so that's pretty much on a par with the year before, so still at record levels. Out of that, centre of London produced 6 billion, and I think if you look at the sort of quantum in terms of the size of those markets, it's outperformed London itself. Appetite, as we know from clients that we talk to sort of week in, week out, particularly in the current climate, because they're obviously very keen to hear what we've got to say, but certainly appetite is still there. Asset pricing is going to be obviously the big question mark. We are late cycle, if that makes sense. So far as we've seen a run of sort of 18 months, 2 years of sort of record capital values being achieved. But you've got to look at these deals in isolation as to why they're being achieved. At the moment, it's a very tricky decision for owners, investors to make in terms of should we hold, should we sell.